Hello, John.
Hello, Oliver.
And today we're going to talk about a very serious case that was in the media, the Irish media, in the early 1980s. It's the Kerry babies tragedy. Can you tell us, just remind us of the circumstances of the Kerry babies case?
I can. It was a very sad case that occurred in 1984, April 1984, and it was received a lot of publicity at the time by way of the Gardaí inquiry and subsequently a tribunal of inquiry. As a matter of fact, you could say it was overloaded with inquiries of one kind or another at the time.
Okay. Now, the seriousness of the situation was that there was two babies. There was one found on a beach with 28 stab wounds, and there was another baby found on Joanne Hayes' farm.
That's right, and I think the initial inquiry focused very much on the baby that was found on Cahirciveen beach, which actually was quite a substantial distance, 80 kilometres or 40 or 50 miles from where Joanne Hayes lived. Now, she became involved, I believe, in the case because when the Gardaí made their inquiries, they found that she had had a child, and that there was no evidence as to know what happened to that child. So that led them to sort of make further inquiries and see if there was a connection between the baby with the 28 stab wounds in Cahirciveen beach and Joanne Hayes.
Exactly. And so they interviewed the family, Joanne Hayes' family, and they interviewed Joanne and Jeremiah Locke. She claims that she had the baby in the middle of the night outside the family home on the farm, and that the baby was crying, and that she pressed her hands on its neck to stop it crying, and she left the baby down and she went to sleep that night in the house, and she came out the next day and the baby was lifeless.
Right. Well, that was seemingly her evidence at the time about the baby that was found on the farm and that had suffered death by perhaps exposure or some other way, but that with the medical evidence at the time, etc., and the Gardaí, it wasn't, as far as one knows at that time, taken any further about the baby that was found on the farm.
Okay, now Judge Lynch at the time said that Joanne Hayes killed the baby on the farm by choking it to stop it crying, in spite of what the pathologist Dr. John Harbison said. Well, he said he was unable to determine the cause of the baby's death. So there seems to be a kind of ambiguity regarding how the baby died.
Well, there seems to have been, and so the fact is that the baby was dead, and I think all one can do there is to ask the person whose baby it was as to know the sequence of events. From what Joanne said, well, I think it's fair to say that the chances of the baby surviving would be very limited, and if she gave birth outside the house, it seems extraordinary in 1984 that there wasn't some midwife or nurse or some doctor involved, that she was able to be, I presume, pregnant, and without any evidence as to know who she was going to for treatment being pregnant, and every assistance given to her so that the baby could be born healthy.
Now, Ireland has a long history of infanticide, and it's no longer a capital punishment since 1949. This is when the actual Infanticide Act changed because it was happening on such a regular basis.
Well, that's a very sad thing to think that such a thing was happening. I believe if that was the case, that it was not a crime. Well, that seems in some respects to be somewhat irresponsible. I think an educational effort to try and encourage women at the time, if they found themselves pregnant, to seek help from the medical profession without any slur on their reputation. After all, it took a man to make them pregnant, and if the men then decided not to have a responsible attitude towards the girl that was pregnant, well, it should be up then to the medical profession and the state
social services
to protect that. And so a very sad affair to think that the state enacted a law making it not a crime, because it is a crime to kill anybody.
Now, given what Judge Lynch said at the time and what Dr. John Harbison said, do you think Joanne Hayes committed infanticide?
Well, you see, it's possible that that's a conclusion one could come to, because there was a baby found on the farm. Her evidence was what apparently it was, that she had it outside the house, and difficulties arose, which is even a wrong place to have a child. God help us, it should have been born indoors with medical assistance. So I think that to try and find out the truth without this effort to involve the situation with regard to the child in Cahirciveen with the 28 stab wounds was probably a mistake.
Okay, so Leo Varadkar recently apologised in the last couple of weeks in Dáil Éireann. He apologised to Joanne Hayes. What has he actually apologised for?
Well, this is the difficulty. I think it followed out of the blue an apology by the police acting commissioner or somebody of that calibre that apologised for associating Joanne Hayes with the baby that was found in Cahirciveen Beech, because the DNA did not match hers. It seems to have taken a long time for that situation to emerge, and it leaves one slightly worried that they didn't have this information as long ago as 1984, because I'm sure medical advances should have been such that should have been possible at the time, rather than 2018, 30 or 40 years afterwards.
Yeah, the Gardaí, I think what he was also apologising for was that the Gardaí said that she had become pregnant simultaneously by two different men through what's called heteropaternal superfecundation. Big words, okay. And that also the baby's blood type might have changed due to decomposition. Now that has been found to be totally untrue, and that's what Leo is actually apologising for. So, which leads me to my next question. Was it appropriate, do you think, given the fact that there is ambiguity what happened to Joanne's baby that she had on the farm? There's two different sides of the story there, from the pathologist, from the judge. Do you think it was appropriate for Leo Varadkar to apologise to Joanne Hayes publicly as the Taoiseach and offer compensation given the circumstances of the case?
I think it was completely wrong for him to interfere in the situation whatsoever. It's very difficult to understand what advice he may have had from the Attorney General, which we have in the government. It was completely unwarranted. If there's been a miscarriage of justice in the case of Joanne Hayes, and that they've discovered in 2018, it's taken them a long time to come to that conclusion. It seems even wrong to, at this point in time, it doesn't seem to make sense bringing this up again. So I think that there's nothing to be served by what the Leo Varadkar, the Taoiseach, has done. He has undermined the judicial process, which is where it should rightly belong if compensation is to be paid for perhaps associating Joanne Hayes with the murder of the child in Cahirciveen with the 28 stab wounds.
It seems a coincidence that Ireland is about to have a referendum on abortion, and now this comes up. Do you think there's an agenda?
Well, it's very peculiar that it has risen at this time, because the pro-abortion brigade have indicated that if abortion was available in 1984, that this might have prevented this situation adopting. But I think that's very mischievous and not at all helpful. There's been enough confusion around the business of the Kerry babies, and no one has been brought to justice for the baby in Cahirciveen with the 28 stab wounds. That should be the objective of the government and the police, if they have any justification for adopting this interference in this case. It is the saddest case that I ever recall in Kerry, and somehow or other, with all the inquiries, I feel that it has muddied the waters, and so the kind of truth that we always wish for and hope for is going to be very difficult to get. And this is not the way to go about it. And for the pro-abortion brigade to indulge in this kind of unacceptable behaviour at the expense of another human being, a woman in this case, and the tragedy is disgraceful.
Very good. I just want to say that the baby that was found on Cahirciveen beach, they called him a baby John. He didn't have a surname, and that he was buried, and for years and years his grave has been vandalised.
Well, that's even shocking. You see, they're bringing this information into the public domain. You know, the Gardaí are charged with protecting citizens, including babies, if they're maltreated in any shape, way or form, as that baby with the 28 stab wounds was certainly maltreated. A terrible tragedy, and a blot on the landscape, and a blot on the police investigation of these affairs. I hope, even at this late stage, that some result will happen from that unfortunate baby that met such a sad end.
At the same time as the Kerry babies has been talked about in the media, there's a young girl called Anne Lovett. I think she was 15 at the time. Can you explain about Anne?
Yeah, well, this has been with the media, and which are pro-abortion, and the pro-abortion lobby have also brought up the case of another very unfortunate case in Granard. A student, Anne Lovett, lovely girl,
a child,
gave birth to a baby, and the baby died and she died at a grotto in Granard. That even makes it twice as sad, at a grotto, and of course implicates, I suppose, the Catholic Church in some way. Do
you think the Catholic Church, I mean the pro-abortion people will say that the Catholic Church caused this?
Not at all. A very sad affair for that poor girl. May she rest in peace in heaven with all the angels and saints, and her baby also. But obviously the health services, her family, and other people that should have been able to, that she should have been able to go to at the time, because 1984 is not the dark ages in any shape, way or form. If people shouldn't have fear if they're young and for some reason or other are pregnant, to go to the medical profession and go to the support services that are there and were there then also. I don't know what mindset this poor child had, all one can do is pray for her, but it should never be used by anyone for any motives.
Which is what's actually happening, you know. Aidan O'Riordan, can you discuss Aidan and his, I think, did you say he was pro-abortion?
Certainly. He was on a programme there, actually Sky Television, some kind of a programme there recently that I've seen. And there was also a pro-life lady on it who was very good, whose name just I cannot recall, but it's just quite recently. Now he was a guy that was a former headmaster, and he was a Labour junior minister during the massive Fine Gael Labour coalition from 2011 to 2016. And he's pro-abortion and anti-Catholic as far as from his utterances. He was a member of the party that closed the Irish embassy to the Holy See. He's also a member of a party that brought in abortion for suicidal women, that nearly the last act they did before they were thrown out during the 2016 election. But now he's a senator from the Senate there, in which he and his party wanted to change and get rid of. But he's a member of that now, and he has been speaking about abortion on this programme of the Sky Television, and as far as I'm concerned, nothing that he had to say would impress anyone with a right-thinking person. And the lady that was pro-life was very good, and she dealt with him. But mind you, you can take it that the Sky lady interviewing would be more pro-abortion than pro-life.
Who was the lady, did you know?
The lady from the pro-life, well, she's a spokesman for it. No, it wasn't...
Cora was her name?
No, it wasn't Cora, it was another lady, a very articulate lady and very able lady whom I've heard before.
Okay.
I wish to goodness I couldn't recall her name.
Okay, so I mean, the pro-abortion people will say that if we go back to the beach, the Cahirciveen beach with the baby John with the 28 stab wounds, okay? The pro-abortion people would probably say, look, this woman was mentally ill. I mean, if anybody puts one stab wound is enough to say there's something mentally wrong with somebody if they do that to a baby, okay? So they'd say that maybe would have been better that if abortion was available, that girl wasn't mentally stable. What would be your argument in return?
Very simply, a hypothetical question that for some reason or another the pro-abortion brigade is able to sort of use in this suspicious manner, which doesn't make sense. The situation that happened there, whether it was the mother or whether it was the father, whether he was mentally deranged himself, or who it was, it's up to the Gardaí, even at this late stage, to find out. But certainly trying to associate abortion with that episode is absolutely dreadful and doesn't serve any useful purpose.
It was a very serious subject, John, and I'm sure it's not the end of it. But thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
We can go on to Fianna Fáil motives.
Which is what's actually happening, you know. Aidan O'Riordan, can you discuss Aidan and his, I think, did you say he was pro-abortion?
Certainly. He was on a programme there, actually Sky Television, some kind of a programme there recently that I've seen. And there was also a pro-life lady on it who was very good, whose name just I cannot recall, but it's just quite recently. Now he was a guy that was a former headmaster, and he was a Labour junior minister during the massive Fine Gael Labour coalition from 2011 to 2016. And he's pro-abortion and anti-Catholic as far as from his utterances. He was a member of the party that closed the Irish embassy to the Holy See. He's also a member of a party that brought in abortion for suicidal women, that nearly the last act they did before they were thrown out during the 2016 election. But now he's a senator from the Senate there, in which he and his party wanted to change and get rid of. But he's a member of that now. And he has been speaking about abortion on this programme of the Sky Television. And as far as I'm concerned, nothing that he had to say would impress anyone of a right-thinking person. And the lady that was pro-life was very good, and she dealt with him. But mind you, you can take it that the Sky lady interviewing would be more pro-abortion than pro-life.
Who was the lady, did you know?
The lady from the pro-life, well, she's a spokesman for it. No, it wasn't...
Cora was her name?
No, it wasn't Cora, it was another lady, a very articulate lady and a very able lady whom I've heard before.
Okay.
I wish to goodness I couldn't recall her name.
Okay, so I mean, the pro-abortion people will say that if we go back to the beach, the Cahirciveen beach with the baby John with the 28 stab wounds, okay? The pro-abortion people would probably say, look, this woman was mentally ill. I mean, if anybody puts one stab wound is enough to say there's something mentally wrong with somebody if they do that to a baby, okay? So they'd say that maybe would have been better that if abortion was available, that girl wasn't mentally stable. What would be your argument in return?
Very simply, a hypothetical question that for some reason or another the pro-abortion brigade is able to sort of use in this suspicious manner, which doesn't make sense. The situation that happened there, whether it was the mother or whether it was the father, whether he was mentally deranged himself, or who it was, it's up to the Gardaí, even at this late stage, to find out. But certainly trying to associate abortion with that episode is absolutely dreadful and doesn't serve any useful purpose.
It was a very serious subject, John, and I'm sure it's not the end of it. But thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
We can go on to Fianna Fáil.